Welcome back to the Mike Oldfield Discography podcast. This time we're looking at Light and Shade, Mike's double album from 2003, following in the wake of Tubular Bells 2003 and following, oh, did I say 2003? Was it 2003?
2005.
Yes. 2005, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And also the start of a new contract. He left Warner after Tubular Bells 2003. Moved over to Universal/Mercury, which is now EMI, for a new contract, which was originally going to be 3 albums, turned out to be 2 only. I think in a way the conditions of the contract themselves already hint at the fact that we're now moving in a new phase. I think he said after the release of Light and Shade at some point that the contract stipulated that the follow-up had to be recorded within 3.5 years, which is a pretty long time. But admittedly, it follows in an insanely productive career. Even in the 90s and the 2000s, up until the 2000s, he was incredibly prolific. But now, as we move into this last phase of his career, releases become more rare events. And he doesn't actually finish the original assignment of the contract of 3 albums. It's just 2. It's an interesting album. I can definitely. I'm really curious what you think of it, because for me, I don't think I have very heavily changing feelings about this record, and I think I've thought about this record more than about most of Mike's other albums. When it was originally released, I was pretty indifferent to it, remained indifferent to it for a very long time. Then there was a phase where I really took to it and I thought I'd figured it out, and I thought there was sort of a hidden concept behind it, which probably wasn't the concept which is behind it, probably wasn't. But I started really engaging with it, and now it's really, I don't know, I think it's a really, really interesting album, especially coming in the wake of Tres Lunas, which I still don't find very interesting. Whatever you think of it, I think this album is really interesting and has a lot of stuff I love coming back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I already said that like Tres Lunas, there's like a sandwich of Tres Lunas, Tubular Bells 2003, and Light and Shade, which couldn't be more bizarre in a way.
Yep.
So he's kind of inserted an album going back to his absolute roots in between 2 albums that are really pretty much removed, or like so much so, what was it then, 30 years, right? It was only 30 years. Like at this time it's 50 years already.
Amazing.
Like from Tubular Bells. But anyway, like it's really, you could say it's pretty much a completely different artist, and he managed to sort of like go back, you could say, go back to the Tres Lunas sound after Tubular Bells 2003, but that's not how it is. So I would see like the progression of going from Tres Lunas to Light and Shade, and the Tubular Bells 2003 thing is something that is entirely separate, sits in the middle of those 2, and is really something completely different. So the reason why I'm saying that is because like the style of composition, and also like the fact that he has included musical motifs from the music VR, like from Maestro and Tres Lunas on Light and Shade as well. It is sort of a continuation of that. Overall, I think, like in hindsight, like obviously at the time I didn't like it much, except for a couple of pieces that had like a strong, really, really strong vibe, which is, we're going to talk about that later. But there are also a couple of pieces that are sort of kind of more questionable to an extent, and those are the covers for me.
Yes.
Then there is like the track Nightshade, which is sort of a feature for Schiller or Schiller.
Yeah.
And And
Do you know him actually? By the way, do you know him?
I've never met him in person.
Okay.
No.
Because he lives in Berlin, of course, and could have been.
No, I've never met him, but I know that Torsten of Tangerine Dream is friends with him.
Yeah, well, they had a collaboration as well, of course.
Yes. So anyway, like the album, I think it gives you like the first impression is very different from what it actually is.
Yes, I agree.
At the time, and I don't think I don't really see that so much in the artwork, but I remember that Mike was working entirely in software, so was mixing in the computer, and he used like a loop-based software, which was Fruity Loops at the time, which was I've never used it, so I don't really know much about it. I had already started working with Ableton Live at this time. But it clearly is a slightly different approach, and sonically it still sounds pretty good for the fact that it was, entirely, as they say in the business, produced in the box.
Yes.
Yeah, so not using analog gear, which obviously is not entirely true, because like on the way in, his instruments have been recorded going through analog gear, and you can actually hear that. And some tracks were released as multi-track stems for this U-Mix format, which was again like another like software innovation that Mike used, but he was not the first one with that. That was actually Peter Gabriel much earlier. I had something like that on one of his CDRs. Yes. Yeah, Night and Shade. What do you think about, like, I mean, the concept for me seems like I don't know how to say it. It doesn't seem like he started out making this record with that in mind, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, we can. There are sort of two polar opposites where you could place this album. On the one hand, you could say it's what we have. There's this German word which is called Resteverwertung. Which essentially means you use stuff which has been lying around, which hasn't been used for the project originally they were written for, and you just stitch it together. So you could see it as that on one hand, and you could say, oh, it's a concept album around the idea of light and shade. And I think it's neither. I mean, right from the very beginning, I always thought, well, okay, I can light and shade, that's Mike in a nutshell. I mean, all of his bigger works have been light and shade. So I don't see it as very specific to this album. And there's also, I mean, just to dispel the idea that it's a concept album, the original title of this was going to be Quicksilver. That's the track from the title from one of the tracks. That was going to be the original title. Then he was also thinking about apparently calling it Breakfast in Bed. I'm not sure if that's true or he was poking fun, but he did say it in an interview.
Really?
Yeah, he said something like Breakfast in Bed. Maybe he just meant something which doesn't actually mean anything, doesn't have anything to do with the music.
Oh, okay.
Probably not Breakfast in Bed, but anyway.
I remember him mentioning the Quicksilver idea. Yes.
And then, of course, there's the promo CD, this very rare promo CD, which was called Chill Out and Cruise.
I've never heard about that.
No, that's actually, there's a promo version of it, which was called Chill Out and Cruise. So the first side was called Chill Out, and the second side was called And Cruise ? Which also has a slightly alternating track order, which is interesting. And actually some of the pieces of the shade side are now on the light side, like surfing. Surfing is on the first CD of the Chill Out and
it doesn't really fit on the dark side. I mean, maybe lyrically it fits on the dark side.
Yeah, there's phantoms in the bad dreams in there.
No, I think this idea of internet addiction, right? That's what surfing is about for me. And pretty early on in the development of the internet, still just about 10 years into the internet, he really nails it.
That's a good point. I always associated it with his time at the beach. But it's true, it's probably about that, yes.
No, it is about that, yeah.
So I was just to come back to the idea of the concept. No, I don't think it works that way. I do think there is a structure behind it, which is typically Mike, but it's not obviously conceptual, no. I mean, we also have to think about something which is the Christopher von Dylan album. So the Schiller, that's his civilian name, Christopher von Dylan, or Dylan, was called Tag und Nacht, Day and Night. And it's also a double album, features Mike on one track. And exactly around the time, like within a week, 1 week before this one came out, I believe, there's the Blank & Jones album, Relax, the second Relax album, which was a huge success across Europe as part of this downbeat, like the late downbeat movement, when everybody thought, okay, Café Del Mar is over. Blank & Jones came back with it, and there was I think on Husum, one of the German islands, there was a bar which would also play downbeat music late at night and in the early morning hours. Milchbar, I think, and could have been other one. Anyway, but it also had a double CD, and it was called, I think, Sun and Moon.
Yeah, interesting.
So this was an idea which was just circulating, and I think because this is obviously Mike's most explicitly club music and downbeat music referential album, I would say. Also in the way that it's produced, I think it just taps into that vibe of the era. That's what I would say.
That's true, absolutely. It feels like an attempt of sorts of, as you say, of milking the cultural environment, and for people like me, I have to say, whenever that happens, it always feels old already when it comes out, even though it may not actually be old at that time. You know what I mean? Like the same experience we've had with talking about Tres Lunas or Voyager, or even Songs of Distant Earth, that they at the time it seemed that they were picking up something that, but really all of these influences, they were pretty much within a year or two, and not really that dated yet.
I think the sort of the ironic thing is, and this is something for me coming also from Jean-Michel, as a big fan of Jean-Michel Jarre's work, is that as an artist you can see that at some point you look back and you realize that you've influenced other people, and then you understand that maybe some people saw something different in your music, but it's interesting because it makes you reflect on your own work. And for Jarre, that was trance music, because all these trance musicians were saying, well, Jarre was the first trance musician. It was electronic music with a pronounced melody. And then what happens is that he was trying to make that music himself, and then it doesn't, like, it's not him. It's him reflected through the lens of someone else. And I think it's something different if, like, you're on Ibiza and someone is playing Tubular Bells at 3 o'clock, or let's say it's at 5 o'clock in the morning, the sun comes up over the sea and it's a beautiful moment, or then trying to recreate that moment, trying to be like an electronic music producer yourself.
Certainly the time from the late 80s till like the mid-noughties, let's say, was the time when musical genres became like a preset on a synthesizer, or a preset within the record company's mindset. And clearly during that period, Mike made records that sort of like fit into that aesthetic, let's say, and also way of thinking of marketing music. At that point, like, he pretty much has been totally absorbed in the well, at least from the outside, and I'm not talking about him as a person, but on the business side, into the thinking of marketing So much less art, more commerce.
Well, he calls it functional.
Yeah, functional for sure. Like, yeah, talking about like the chill out idea, the new age idea with Voyager.
Yeah.
It's pretty much functional, yes. Which is funny because like that's really the one thing that his music originally wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's also why I think it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Because you cannot just play it in the background. What I will give him though, as I said, I actually really, really like this album. But what I will give him is that although he is trying to make it functional, it still doesn't sound like anything else. Like if you compare it to the Schiller album, it's really different. There's one precursor to this album, which I think is, I don't know if you know this one, TDF, Totally Dysfunctional Family, by a project called Retail Therapy, which was Eric Clapton and I think Simon Climie. And they recorded an electronic music album originally made, I think, for the Gucci fashion shows. I think it was Gucci. I'm not so that well versed in fashion, but yeah, Clapton was friends with some of these designers, and he was asked to, why don't you record an album for us in this electronic music event? This is from 1997, and it's electronic music, some of drum and bass, and a lot of downbeat stuff with a bluesy feeling. And that is the one album which sounds like this a bit. There's actually, the first track is called Angelica, which I really find funny.
that is interesting.
I think it's complete coincidence, but you never know.
Yes.
Anyway, I think that is a cool album. Everyone hated it when it came out because it was like this one. I think it confronted the fans.
Now that you mention it, there's also an album by Jeff Beck. And I can't remember what it was called, so I'm just gonna.
That's funny because I was going to say Satriani, of course, in a way.
Yes.
The slower stuff, like.
Yes, but there's a Jeff Beck album was partially produced by David Torn.
Ah, interesting.
And it has it has these electronica elements, and yes, you're right. I think that must have been the same kind of same time. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I can't. My eyesight is so bad today. I can't really see on screen.
Sorry.
Yeah. So we already kind of like mentioned that. So on the first record, let's just call Light the first record. We have one cover which is Closer.
Yes.
And he actually recorded two versions of that, right? So, and the simpler version made it onto the album.
Yeah.
The more elaborate version was released as a bonus track with the French title, Près de Toi. And the other pieces are originals. And like there's for me the standout tracks originally were Angelique and Our Father as sort of like the I don't know how to put it, like in terms of the overall vibe. They kind of like spoke to something within me, and something like Sunset was sort of like not so great, but now like when I listen to it, like Sunset is a really incredible kind of piece of music.
Yeah.
Like totally tailored. And actually the funny thing, I have heard Sunset, I'm touring the world a lot, and that's one of the pieces I occasionally actually hear being played and on the radio, when I'm sitting somewhere.
By the way, I just have to insert this, like if the first record is called Light, why is Sunset? Oh, it's Sunset, right? Okay, so it's sort of the idea maybe that's day, right? And it ends with sunset. Okay.
Yes. And it totally has the vibe of like the Ibiza, sitting in a cafe on the beach, the sun going down. That's.
That's interesting.
Well, Sunset, you're right. Like it is confusing a little bit.
Maybe it's interesting. I'm totally with you with Angelique. Interesting you didn't mention Blackbird, because Blackbird was the one that I loved from the beginning. which suffers a bit maybe from the piano sound. But I think Blackbird is like an amazing composition.
It's very strong. It's very strong, very simple.
Very simple, yes.
Like simple in not simplistic, not at all. Like melodically, this is funny. Like he does. It's funny. Like the sound is more chill or accessible, but musically, there's some dissonances he still does where the melody lands on like dissonant notes and things like that, which is kind of surprising. You know? Yeah, it is like this idea of double tracking or multi-tracking a grand piano is cool somehow. You know, I think it's
He actually does something with it as well. I mean, I really think this one would have been so much more beautiful in a stripped down acoustic arrangement. But again, it's not like he's lazily using a preset. I think some people mistake this as a preset. I think it's a sampled grand piano, his grand piano. And then
why do you think it's sampled?
I think, well, because he mentioned he played it on his is it Steinway? I think he mentioned this.
It's a Bechstein.
Or right? Bechstein, maybe whatever.
I don't remember.
But it's clearly been processed. So if his
but I would say it's the straight recording of that thing, like multi-track. There's maybe 2 or 3 takes on top of each other, and then it's just mixed with some effects. I don't think it's.
But he's actually, what I find cool is that he's actually the effects change continually. So it's not just applied once and then he plays it through, but the effects are used as a musical layer, which I find really, so almost every part of the pattern has its own character. I think there's a lot of going on behind this, as you put. It's true, it's a very simple piece, but I think there's a lot going on the timbral plane.
Absolutely, and actually something like The Gate is really quite experimental.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece.
Yeah, and then it it has the moment where it opens up to that simple acoustic guitar melody, and then also in the end, like he basically it's got an A and a B section, and then A and B sections get combined at the end. Yeah. So using like things he's been doing in all his career. But again, I have to say, like the sound, the dressing, let's say, right? The dressing is very, very maybe the issue, or could be, probably was my issue at the time. When I listen to it now, like I'm beyond, that kind of. But I now see why it was sort of like it was harder to actually experience this as a genuine Mike Oldfield album, which doesn't make sense. But at the time, it really felt like that. I remember the fan responses on the forums at the time, which weren't favorable.
Yeah. So the way I would compare it maybe is, I don't think it's sweetness. I don't think it's a sweet touch, but I find with this album, this is a rare occasion where I need to be in a special state of mind. And when I open up to it, there's moments on there which are really wistful and really emotional. And I think in First Steps, the first part of that piece, when he slowly builds it up, there's guitar sections in there which feel so really deeply emotional and painful. There's an expression of, but not in this big announce it to the world way. It's inward, and I think that it's almost like you have a table, and it's a beautiful rustic table, and then you put varnish on it, like it starts shining.
Yes,
that's how this feels. But that's why sometimes it just feels too much. You have to break through this layer of varnish, but underneath I think there's many moments on the album where it's really expressive, and almost more expressive than in like most of the albums of his Warner period, which are somewhere else. They're not that, they don't have that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember that at some point I used the metaphor of the sound being sort of like covered in chrome or something like around the Tubular Bells 3 era, you know, those releases. And yeah, it's true. It's true. Remember that was something like we were, in a way I see like, so even though there's almost like 10 years between Voyager and this, but somehow there is also like a really close relationship, and would say also the things that didn't go too well are the same.
Yeah, totally.
Same issues, let's say.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I'm not suggesting that he should have done anything different. Not really, but I'm just trying to analyze why maybe the responses were the way they were. And in a way, and this is interesting, like even though at this time we already knew that Mike was a pioneer and visionary, but accepting this sort of thing as visionary was difficult.
Very.
But now looking back, I think I can see that maybe it actually still was visionary in a way.
Yeah.
It's not easy to pinpoint what it is, but just the fact that I still need to accept the production choices he made here as something that, so basically like what he did was outside of any scheme of taste, like, but I'm not saying taste as in good or bad taste, but he created like a new flavor that is just that people have not been used to, and maybe still are not even 100% used to.
Well, this, like if you take the Gate, it is his voice processed through the machine, and what comes out of it is somehow transhuman. And I think you know this, and it's very different from the way a vocoder works and changes the voice, which is makes it machinal. But this is like the both at the same time, and it's that if you call it.
And he said that was like really the main thing that he did production-wise, to experiment with these vocal synthesizers, where actually some of the voices, yes, are his and treated, but some of them are completely synthetic.
Yeah.
And for the time, you know, this was big. Nowadays we have these AI voices, which still, interesting enough, have this flavor of otherworldliness and being wrong somehow.
Yeah.
But here now I can see like how his creativity in how surfing is a good example also, where he's used a huge range of like very low voices and very high voices and mixed them together in a choir. Just sort of like arranging and doing this work was a lot of work, I'm sure. Like it's interesting. So you take it's like that's such a simple little song, and you know, like about surfing the internet, and but there's a lot of detailed work in it, which is, as you say, like where do we have the voices? We have voices in Angelique. We have voices in the Gate, actually based on the voice on the round. It's a round, just like Omadon, you know. Like and then we have Our Father, obviously, and on Shade we have
Slipstream.
Quicksilver. Does it have one? Slipstream, Resolution as well. Surfing, Tears of an Angel. All of those have
I believe Rings. Yeah, lots of them have voices as choir voices, and then
yes.
Not
or
lyrics,
just a spoken word, like Slipstream.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of like talking about the Light album right now. Interestingly enough, but so the big question always is like where do we have the Tubular Bells influence the parts where, and it's on Shade, there's a couple, right? And the funny thing is now that I don't even know, I should have written it down. If it's Quicksilver, probably, right?
Yeah, although
that has the Tubular Bells.
Well, the funny thing, of course, Quicksilver is the Fruity Loop demo track, which someone else did, which I agree, it has a Tubular Bells flair to it, but it's coincidental. Maybe that's why he picked it. But the Quicksilver one was actually done by a guy called, what's his name?
Klutz?
Yes, Jason Klutz. So he recorded his own version of it, which is called High Pass.
Who did? Klutz?
Klutz did, yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's basically the way it starts. It goes on, and then he has a very simple, long-held chord pattern on top of it. I think it's just 2 chords. So it stays in that mood, and then of course you can actually really see what Mike does with that original simple idea and how he enriches it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, you see, thanks for reminding me of that, because I wasn't aware of that anymore.
Yeah, it's one of the few things which is actually mentioned in the booklet, because some of the other contributions are not, like the covers are not singled out as covers.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. Wow. Yeah, the covers are Closer and Romance.
Yeah. Well, I have to talk about it at some point.
Yes. Yeah, the funny thing is that so it is sort of a very strange mashup, the whole record of technologies, of his guitar tone, like he's using like the Fender bass guitar, like from the 60s, and it's kind of prominent in I think only on the Shade record, right?
It's hard to say.
It's Angelique.
I was going to say that's probably it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that is sort of like, again, like a variation, like you could say, of the finale bass guitar part in Tubular Bells, and it has that rhythm.
I was going to say that the whole thing, the opening even of Tubular Bells, because it begins with the piano and then the bass comes in.
Yeah, but like musically it's so different though that I know, like in terms of the instruments you're right, but yeah. And do we know anything about Angelique? Was that also one of his animals, maybe?
No, it's the name of a preset on the keyboard.
Okay.
What I love is I think it's also Vocaloid, which does the thing, but it's the entire track runs through with Angelique. And then at the very end, there's one take. This is again like Mike's. I think this is really Mike Oldfield thing. Is one voice is heard, and it's not the vocoder, but it's probably him saying Angelique the correct way.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what the idea is, but it's funny.
Yes.
Because there's an irritating quality to the fact that it's clearly pronouncing it against the usual pronunciation.
Yeah, but that would also sets it apart, or it would makes. So you know it's not real.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And I think that's.
Yes, I agree.
That could have been and probably was off-putting at the time for a lot of people, but I think that's what makes it kind of cool.
Yeah.
That he's using the glitching, let's say, of the software as part of the sound.
There's actually, I think you're totally right that this sort of this weird meshing of technology and like technology and acoustic. Ideas, and so for me the like a big moment is in the gate, which you mentioned, when the processed voices go away and then the guitar comes in, which the melody reminds me of Tubular Bells 2 a bit, the opening.
Yes.
Because that is a beautiful moment, and then they merge again. So that is sort of, I think conceptually, that's an important moment on the record. And one thing I noticed after listening to it more and more is that it's actually an orchestral album in many ways. There's piano, there's choir voices, there's timpani in one or two places.
Yes.
I think it's an oboe, could also be a clarinet, not quite sure, that type of sound. There's pizzicato strings, lots of strings in general. And the arrangements also have they're very they don't have this quantized 4 bars looping quality. They don't, even though it was done in Fruity Loops. There's something.
Yes, some of the tracks have it.
Yeah,
on the shade
obviously
record.
Slipstream, Quickfill.
Yes. Yeah, I just had a thought again, like tying back into what we started thinking about with Earth Moving, where we were thinking like that Mike is just kind of like also kind of developing or trying things as a producer rather than as a musician, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously working with his own compositions, but sort of like testing the waters more for pieces of music that could, create an income via being radio singles or used for documentaries and stuff. And it feels like this is like pushing even more into that direction. As something that would satisfy the rights holders, let's say, and so also the companies and that he's been working with at the time.
And also, I think it's funny you mentioned Earth Moving. I was thinking about this when I came here, because when Earth Moving we did Earth Moving, you mentioned it could have been an album which was maybe going to be something different, or which maybe could have been different things, even like different approaches. This one is obviously taken from different directions. Like there's stuff from Tres Lunas, there's stuff even from Maestro.
Yes.
Some of the stuff was unreleased, some of it is just reworked. Then this idea of the classical cover versions. We also had some of stuff in that direction from the Millennium Bell. So some of it is from the past, some of it is going forward. Maybe it's something which was put together from different ideas, and then he makes it work through the arrangements and the production.
I mean, that's the one thing. Yeah, that's the one thing that is I'm 100% certain. Like, and you said this 20 minutes ago already, that this is sort of like leftovers. In like some of these things are leftovers, but then others are clearly not leftovers in the sense that I wouldn't know where does it come from. Like Our Father and Angelique as examples, or even Sunset, they don't seem to come from something else. At least it's not obvious like what kind of ideas they come from. So what I would think is that he probably had like a handful or two handful of pieces which were new, and rather than making one record for whatever reason, like, or maybe he was saying, I have these leftovers which are great, let's incorporate them into the record. And then, as you say, by producing them at the same time, you sort of put them in the same situation. But for me, very clearly something like Ringscape, let's say, right, which is the Tres Lunas track on this record. Production-wise, it's so different, right? Like, also, like that, he's like using some of these like more contemporary rhythm tracks, let's say, like in a more funky way, is kind of out of character a little bit. But then thinking about it, like these moments I'm thinking about, they are actually, remember the Guitars album as being kind of like a little bit in between the cracks, right? And somehow like some things like the closer guitar thing, like that kind of that's sort of like the what is called Four Winds, right? It's a little bit like that. And then also I think parts of Ringscape also reminded me of the Four Winds track in the arrangement, like the way the sounds were used and stuff like that. It's
something like Resolution to me sounds like I would have expected an album called Guitars to sound. So that's the second track from the Shade album, which is the most heavy, like the heavier song on it in this one.
Yeah, and which in a way, you are right, reminds me of the compositions on guitars.
I just feel like
It's
this one,
true.
he
This one
nails
could
the
be.
production on this one. It really has this band feeling, and I think on one or two occasions he has a beautiful organ. I don't know if he plays the organ here, but it's great.
Yeah. He plays. I think he plays everything. Definitely. And like again, here all the equipment is listed in the booklet.
Yeah. Even though it's probably not exhaustive, I love how it says keyboards. I think it says Yamaha and Roland.
Roland, yeah.
I mean that's as non-descript as you can get, but
Yes.
it probably just means.
You know, it
doesn't
is
matter.
Steinway Grand. You're right.
Yeah, that's what it says, right? So that's why I thought maybe he recorded it. Maybe you're right. He just recorded. They processed it afterwards. Maybe he didn't sample it outright, but it doesn't sound like this. Like the.
It's there's a little bit of confusion there for sure. You know, like here, he says that he used the Native Instruments plugins, and it's not listed here, but they still have this B3, this Hammond organ plugin, which probably is the
Probably
one
is.
he
It
used.
sounds great.
Yeah. And Logic 7 already had built-in synthesizers and samples and sounds, so he's probably used those as well.
I wanted to maybe just mention.
By the way, before I forget, right? And is it listed here? Yes. Morphology is listed here as a library, and Ian Boddy and I did that library.
What does it? What kind of sounds?
You know, the thing is that I don't even remember, but I remember it was an Ian Boddy sound library that I contributed to.
I see. So you're part of Mike's.
Well, at least I was on his computer once.
That's nonetheless pretty cool.
Thanks for reminding me.
I was going to talk about Vocaloid for 1 second because if I understood correctly, it's a nice connection as well. Why Vocaloid? Vocaloid was actually like super new when this album came out. I think it was basically presented to the public that year, like the year this came out. But the connection is that the voice one of the voices used for the very first edition of that software was Miriam Stokely, who is the lead singer of Adiemos, where Mike has a clear connection. And then she would also go on the Night of the Proms tour with him. So she was the singer of that tour.
Was she also singing on any of his music before?
No, I don't think she sang on any of the things before, but she did sing on that one, and she was part of the Vocaloid project.
And then she did the Moonlight Shadow, and
I just thought it was interesting that this must have come through some kind of personal connection. Can't be a coincidence. Could be a coincidence. Yeah. I mean, he was obviously interested, but
Carl Jenkins, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Also, like the next record
with Carl Jenkins.
Carl Jenkins, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, how interesting, right? So the funny thing is that Mike used to be part of the Canterbury scene in the late '60s, early '70s, and then returns like 30 years later.
Yes, I was
how bizarre!
I was going to say big circles closing, and then you look on the cover and it's a circle closing.
Exactly, and it's kind of horrible that it's the tubular bell.
It looks a bit like two macaronis more than a cool piece of art.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's not a great artwork.
Do you want to talk a bit about the guitar solos? Because I think it's often forgotten how much guitar is on this album. There's a lot of it, and a lot of it really up front. It's not because the background is all electronic almost. The guitars sit on top, and you actually get to hear him just play beautiful melodies and guitar solos.
Yeah, I mean, like this is certainly, even though there's a lot of that vocal synth stuff on there, there are only few moments where the vocal takes the lead. It's still the guitar doing the lead. Yes, yeah. I mean, what can I say about it? Like, it's really. He developed as a player. He developed the emoting, let's say, he was doing in the 70s, 80s, completely changed towards, let's say, the mid-90s, really after the Songs of Distant Earth. So Voyager was sort of like a kind of a way of using more cleanish sounds.
Yeah.
And this is something that he has kept alive a lot during that period, and really coming back to the arrangement with distorted sounds, or like power chords and stuff like that. Really, pretty much on this record, things kind of like come together. I mean, obviously, this is all relatively when I say this. Obviously, on every record you can find all sorts of different sounds, but like for me, still there's like Oldfield from 73 to 87. Then 89, he discovers new guitar sounds using the wah-wah, corked wah-wah, for Amarok, Heavens Open, and then into Tubular Bells 2, he's using those sounds. And then with Songs of Distant Earth, you still have some of that. You have him use the Strat that he started using in the mid-80s with maybe first really seen, let's say, on during the Discovery time, I would say. Keeps using that, and then in the 90s, in the mid-90s, it really switches. He drops the sound that he's discovered 5-6 years earlier, and goes to this more, what at the time we would say new age kind of sound, with that semi-acoustic PRS guitar. So it's kind of like more like wooden kind of sound and tone, where it's sort of like a combination of the Les Paul or SG sound with the Strat sound, and like all of these things kind of evolve. And then another 10 years later, here we still have a lot of that. And yes, there are beautiful, just beautifully played guitar parts. I think that they are not as probably well recorded or produced as they could have been. So in order to have a bigger impact, I really think that may be the like, again, think about Tubular Bells 2003, where everything's perfect. So the sounds are incredibly great. Here, that is sort of gone. It still sounds great. I'm not saying it's bad in any way, but it's a little bit more washed out in terms of the transience, of the sounds. And maybe there's a very simple explanation for that. It could be that he's worked on his own without an engineer. So, and I'm not saying that like he couldn't have done a great job, but it's just so much harder because you have to keep track of so many moving parts when you're producing, playing, recording, right? And so maybe that's also one of the reasons why this record sounds the way it does, and it does that. It's good, it's okay, right? So, but there's something less poignant, interesting enough about some of the songs. And there's like, again, Sunset as an example. It's a song that I always thought didn't feel that great, but now when I listen to it, like sonically, it's just so cool. With that perspective on the time. Yes, you're right. There are a lot of like really nice and expansive guitar arrangements, especially the guitar solo section of Surfing.
Yes.
For example.
Yes, I had that one noted as well, because I think it's made up of 3 guitars playing at the same time. It's like if you listen on it in headphones, it's
yes,
really envelopes.
And it's more like that, because in the in the background you still hear guitar chords and power chords and stuff like that so it's a lot of guitars. Yes, and it's funny because it starts out with that groove, the drum groove with twinkly keyboards, let's say, and then a synth pad and a voice, like a synthetic voice, and that spoken voice, right? And then it grows into that huge chorus of guitars. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yes.
I think generally my idea was because I think what I understood is that he really slimmed down his studio and sold a lot of his guitars. And around the time of Light and Shade, he also.
But was that? I thought that he sold them after this.
It's really hard to say. I think the chronology that I understood was he started working again on his autobiography because there had been an aborted attempt at the autobiography before with a different ghostwriter, or let's say call it assistant, like someone helping him to put it down. So he starts again and then comes back, like finishes it with as Changeling. And what he said around the time when the album was released is that working on the autobiography made him understand a lot of things about himself, and then he started rebuying a lot of the guitars. So he must have sold them before. So I'm not sure what he's working. Does it say in the booklet which guitars he's using on the album? It must be.
Yes. It's the PRS. So it's the Strat, the Fender Strat, the pink one from '63, the PRS Signature from 1990, okay. The Ramirez Classical from '74. So. And the Fender Precision Bass from '64.
Okay. Yeah. I just had this idea that this is in a way is sort of his blues album because he's trying to keep the things simpler. And the guitar solos are not very long. They're not these super extensive, like extended ones. And some of the beautiful stuff I think is just in sort of the where he just plays a lick here and there and just enrich
the lick or just the melodies.
Or just the melodies.
He's the voice, as he always was. Like he's the lead voice whenever he plays, and he does that really well here. Like I say, it's not. I think probably as a result of the. And I'm just repeating myself. I think he was. If he had a co-producer, this could have been like. Technically better, let's say, right? Again, I don't see it as a real issue because it's still very well made, but in order to put this on a different, like this would be also one for remix.
Would be interesting.
Yeah.
Although I will say that.
You know why I say that also? Because the UMix versions.
Yes, and then when you.
Yes, there are, because it's 4 pieces and there are multi-tracks for those, so you can hear how the guitars were recorded.
Oh.
You could hear that they were not edited correctly, let's say. There's some... Anyway, it's nothing really bad.
Yeah.
But with an external engineer, things could have been just... Yeah, I don't want to repeat myself.
No, but again. I mean, of course, we can actually compare, because some of the tracks, we can compare some of the pieces on Tres Lunas with the pieces on this one, and I would say the production is just pretty much the same. And then, of course, there's a piece, Our Father, sort of is very similar to Jewel in the Crown from Tubular Bells 3. And so you can compare the production. I actually prefer this production to the Tubular Bells 3.
Yeah.
And then we have a piece called Rocky, which is a melody taken originally from Amarok. And if you want to listen to it, it's around this 26, 27 minute in Amarok, into Amarok. In Amarok, it's just very short part, and he extends it into a piece. And I would say, I mean, it's obviously a different arrangement. I prefer the Amarok mix, and the Amarok mix is...
I never made that connection. Well, I have to listen to it again. He develops it more here, but the original has the Celtic rhythms in the background. It's a very different feel. But it's cool, and it also connects the album back to his earlier work, which I like. But so you can sort of, I think the production is somewhere in the middle, I would say. I never liked Tubular Bells 3. I still think that one it doesn't really work on the CD. I haven't listened to the vinyl, but I don't think it works that well on the CD. It's almost identical to Tres Lunas. And it's probably a step down from his early 90s stuff, which admittedly sounded incredible. So, I mean,
that's not even a put down. I mean, it's just that 90s stuff sounded second to none. It was just amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like I'm still puzzled by the inclusion of the covers, which I think is yeah, I just don't get it. Like they break the vibe, they break the flow, both of them. And I mean, I get it in the sense of like his humor with the romance thing, right? Like
yes.
And also the fact that he's always done these things for his in the past as singles or B-sides and stuff like that. So I really think like as a B-side
would have been okay.
Yes. There are more B-sides actually. The Cook's theme, which is kind of funny.
Yep.
It's cool, and some other like things like there's one thing I need to mention, like the version of Nightshade on the album is I don't like it at all. It's weak because I listened to the other version, which was probably on the demo, as you.
It's slightly different, yeah.
It's not just slightly different. Emotionally, it just works so much better.
Interesting. I need to listen to that.
Yeah, it's really a great emotional track, and on the album version, the beat is mixed differently, in a way that it's just less emotionally impactful for me.
We have to also mention that Morgentau, that is the Morning Dew, that's the piece he did with Christopher von Dahlen on Tag und Nacht, or Day and Night. I actually prefer that one too. I think that, and he plays beautiful guitar on that one.
Yes. Yeah.
I find romance hard to say. I think the one thing I think with romance is, when I came here today, I thought about this idea of good taste. And I thought, I mean, people who just have good taste, I don't think you like music. I think that's something different. Good taste, that's like, I don't know, putting beautiful flowers in a vase or maybe. Mm-hmm. But I think if everything you like is just in good taste, I think, I don't know, that's not something I would be interested in. I agree, romance doesn't work.
But the funny thing is that I think it does work. But it's just sort of like an elaborate, I don't want to say joke, but like practical joke in a way.
Yes, I agree.
And it's an experiment. It's sort of like you were saying, like the first track, the Quicksilver is a demo of the software, and in a way, Romance is a demo of like maybe those loops were actually in Fruity Loops, and he just built the track from Fruity Loops, and it's such a cliche classical guitar repertoire piece.
Yes, it's a backward translation that adds to it. I mean,
yes.
You would, like, if you were to you saw Romance on the track list, you would expect him to go all out as a guitarist.
Yes, but he does it, like, the funny thing is that he harmonizes the guitar, the melody, in a ridiculous way, like with all of these like really high and bendy, very expressive, very not easy to play, and it's kind of mixed in a way that it sort of like takes over the original melody a little bit, and I think it's kind of cool for that, and just having that melody and his playing sit within that totally generic push of a button preset-y kind of backing track is what makes it kind of funny. I mean, so as a standalone track, I think it's as good as Froggy Went to Courting or something like that. You know, it's sort of like the same sort of vibe of doing something. Let's just experiment, just do something, just for the fun of it, and that's so cool. But here it is kind of like inserted into the list, into the track list, as if it's part of the album, which it is because it is inserted there. But the question really is, was Mike envisioning that? Did the record label say, "Oh, it's not long enough, we need more, blah blah blah"? You know, you can fit 60 minutes on a CD. And you know, by the way, I think this is his longest album.
It's as long as album.
It's longer than Incantations.
Yeah. I'll give you my theory on this because I think there's a structure to the album. Mm-hmm. And I'm sort of almost pathologically primed to look at these structures because as a kid, I grew up on CDs, listening to music which was made in the vinyl era. And it took me a while to figure that out and to understand why the structure of the albums were the way they were. So what I noticed was First Steps has a gorgeous and like soaring guitar solo climax. Mm-hmm. So why does that come at that particular point? Well, it comes at that point because it's the A side of the first record. So so I think of an incision after First Steps. First Steps is the finale of the first 4 tracks, which actually flow together beautifully. Mm-hmm. And then you have the B side of the Light album, which starts with Closer. And Closer is a very quiet, introspective start, which doesn't mean anything by itself, but it opens the B side, which is more atmospheric, more pastoral, dare I say, and that's the B side. And then on the that's the B side, which I've called an intermezzo, lighter, brighter, dreamy. Then you have the second album, the Shade album, and the first 3 tracks I would say also form a sort of a suite, which I've called Tubular Bells 3 Revisited. There's sort of these tracks include the Tubular Bells allusions and so forth. The theme keeps reappearing, the tracks are interconnected, and then what follows, which also includes Romance, that's his finale, and it's sort of similar to the Millennium Bell. I think there's this idea the finale should amalgamate what came before in the classical symphony. So you have light and shade, but just taken over the top. That's the way a classical composer would do it. And so you get Romance, which is light, back to the light, and it's just over the top light. And you also have the darker pieces like Night, Shade, that's where it ends. So that's the way I would structure it.
But then, I mean, for me, it's all good. I have Romance there, but why Ringscape then?
Yeah, I don't know.
That sort of like, for me, doesn't work at all.
I agree. It's a flaw.
You know, like Ringscape is the equivalent to First Steps on the first record for me.
Yes. By the way, I thought that the Cook's theme that would have been the Sailor's Hornpipe.
Yes, absolutely.
So that would have made sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't. It's not a perfect theory. As I said, I thought about this a lot, but if you listen to the album like that, by the way, it's ironic. This is the only album, you said it's his longest album, it's also the only album by his which has never been issued or reissued as on vinyl. Whereas I would actually think that if you turn it into a 4-sided album, it would make for a much better listen.
That's true. Yes, I agree. Yeah, this would be a cool one to take on as a sort of. It would be cool to kind of like make a new version of it somehow.
Yeah, I agree. You're right with the remix. It's just I don't know why he went to Universal with this. It would have, like, if it had been on Warner would have now reissued it on vinyl for sure. We would have gotten some kind of a remix. It's also weird. He switches record companies, and then and part of the reason is again that the people at Warner have left. He feels as though the original spirit had been lost, just like it happened with Virgin. But he comes to EMI or to Mercury, and there's hardly any promotion around this record at all. There's very, very few interviews from this time.
Yeah, I remember like there was the photographs with his motorbikes, right?
Yeah.
At the time and things like that.
Yeah, he was really into biking.
Yes. I'm.
One of the pieces is called after one of his bikes. I'm not quite sure which one.
So I'm also wondering, because you were wondering about why he went with this record with Mercury, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. I'm just trying to remember, and I'm making a quick web search here, because Mike did sell his publishing at some point, right? Did he?
I didn't know that. That would definitely explain it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, it says that. Yeah. But anyway, like the problem is that we really are not not qualified, I would say, to even talk about these things. But I'm pretty sure if we had an idea of the contractual and like the ideas between a new deal, that we would know much more about why the albums came out the way they came out.
I'm sure. There's a lot of, and particularly this, I mean, we usually think, well, the record company wants a hit and stuff. There can be more musical demands. I just read today that Primal Scream, after they'd recorded Screamadelica, they returned with an album which was the complete opposite again. They went back to their rock roots. And the record company said, no, we don't like the mix. And then they had it remixed and it sounded like much flatter and much less aggressive. And later they reissued the version as they had envisioned it, and it sounded miles better. And it would have probably saved them from the hate they got at the time. I think it's there can be all kinds of behind the screens arguments.
Absolutely.
If you look at the photography also by Mike, I think it's like there's not a lot of image in there. I think like especially if you look on the tray, the one which if you fold out the CD, that one is, as you said, it's almost like I'm a composer, I'm a producer. It's not this art. There's nothing concrete, specific.
That's something that I think we also mentioned, that sort of like this, the photography, like you could see that he was less and less interested in actually presenting or using himself as an image, where that was something that he was very comfortable, like, I mean, not if he was comfortable, but it worked really well having his face on the covers, which started with Omadon and then Discovery and you know, like there, and again here his face is on the cover, sort of like superimposed on this mesh structure, and then obviously they had to play with the light and shade with the two sides and blah 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 like that. I mean, for the time, like it's certainly, like in terms of the look, it's certainly a product of the time. And then like I really hate the fact that they had to include the ring. I mean, I don't know. On the other hand, like it's also cool that actually they seem to have given a fuck somehow, right?
Let's hope that was the reason. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to say more about individual pieces or? Like,
I've thought about this a lot. I mean, some of the stuff maybe it's taking too far. The one thing which I think, by the way, you mentioned it's the response wasn't good. It's true, but on Prog Archives, which I don't recommend anyone visit too often because it's a frustrating read for me all the time. But there's the average. You can see the average scores these albums get, and Light and Shade has a better average score than Tres Lunas, a better average score than Millennium Bell, a better average score than Earth Moving, a better average score than Islands, and I think it's just about on par with Discovery and. Probably some of the other 90s albums. So it's not as hated as some people think. I think it sits somewhere in the middle. My impression is that in a way, what is happening in this 90s era, and which is I think hard for some people to accept, is he is withdrawing to some, like the electronic medium is not the place where you can really hear this is Mike. I think if Tubular Bells, the point is that you can hear Mike in every single line.
Yes.
And on this album, you can hear it in the guitars, some of the voicings. Probably that's why I like the Gate so much, because I can really hear him through the production. But you can't hear him on stuff like Slipstream. You just like I think I always thought that was a really well-made dance piece. but you can't hear him in that piece as much. And I think I saw it as also using Vocaloid. It's like he's withdrawing, like he wants less of himself in the music. Which is a weird thing in a way, but that's what I hear in this phase. And I know that's something I think about. Why?
Yeah, but yes, I kind of know what you mean. Also, but you could also say it in a positive way. You could say that he managed to do something that sounds new, and it's true. Like even in the this has always been something fascinating, that Mike could write a completely different way of melody, and it would still sound like him.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree that here, when Slipstream, like the main melody, which is sort of like a voice, right?
Yeah.
It really is a kind of melody that is new, and I would have to analyze it to understand why it's so different from, like or just think of like Our Father. Yeah. But which is also getting very, like, I don't know how he does it. Like he comes up like with this new ways of making a melody with like a new set of sort of intervals and rhythms and.
I actually think surfing is very interesting also. Like if you look at the melody, and the jumps in the melody.
Yes. Yes.
You always think, I know this, but you don't. And some of the stuff is really weird, but it feels familiar, which is
absolutely, and that's really the sign of his greatness, is that he does something like the gate, for example. Right, the gate is kind of a strange circular composition.
Yeah.
And sort of like I don't know how to put it, but I don't know how to put it. It's sort of like, I don't want to use the word aimless, because it's not aimless in the sense that it doesn't go somewhere, but it has sort of this more of the flavor of like a painting. So it's kind of like a little bit stuck in time for a moment before you can then sort of remove a veil or something like that. It's almost as if like the compositional style is dealing more with time, let's say, or with freezing time than he's done that before.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fascinating perspective, because the piece, of course, starts with like based on thirds, and then it opens up into fifths, and then the chords.
Yes.
And then the melody comes in, and it's sort of the melody affirms what you've only felt before, and it shifts through all these different keys.
Yes, exactly.
So it does open up like a harmonic plane, a tonal plane, which is.
And here's like some other thing that I just remembered when I listened to the album a few weeks ago. That time stretching, like audio time stretching was pretty new at the time, really, with Ableton Live, and I guess that Fruity Loops did do it as well. And there's at the end of Our Father, when the piano plays the dum 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 dum, you can hear some sort of wobbly, watery kind of sound on the piano sound, and I think it actually is probably a time stretched version of a. I mean, just saying it's possible, and again, like the fact that he left this glitchy sound in there. I mean, nowadays nobody would really do it that way anymore unless it's really pronounced as part of a style or something. Yeah. But I found that interesting listening back to it, that he did make use of that technology in a way that it was noticeable, just like he was using the voice, the Vocaloid stuff.
Maybe so. One of the things from that interview, from the time, which I found interesting, is he was asked, "Why do you prefer female voices in your songs?" And he says, "The voice is one more instrument for me, but I like female voices because they've got a different kind of rhythm." So I think that's like a really fascinating perspective. Why does the female voice have a different rhythm? But then I read an interview as part of the research I did for the book about Mark Rothko and music with John Luther Adams, because John Luther Adams has referred to Rothko several times, and I read these descriptions as an essay by Adams, which is really, really cool, in the book Winter Music. And he describes that to him, as his career progressed, color became more important. All the more important. So he said, so color comes first, composition comes afterwards. And he said, color is not timbre to him. Color is the voicing, and the harmony can be color. Is that something you can recognize? Because I wonder if that's maybe something which is also the same for Mike, because I was reading this, and clearly Adams has thought about this and is describing something real, but it's so different from what I perceive as a listener. Just like I would never talk about something like the female voice as having a different rhythm. It just seems like he's talking about something else, but maybe he isn't. So that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, like the way the synesthetic experiencing like works, like for each one of us, it's unique, right? So it's a good question. Like,
you don't have synesthesia.
I don't know. I mean, I do in a way. Like for me, for me, a lot of things are kind of represented as feelings, like not so much as words or sounds, right? For me, it's a lot about the inner emotional world, let's say, right? So, and I'm not visual at all. So for me, color doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but I agree that like rhythm, obviously like a female voice, because it's higher, so it resonates quicker, so it has a different rhythm for sure, like just by definition already, right? So yeah, but that's what makes the this detailed approach of like editing like synthetic voices more interesting also. Again, at that time, like it wasn't, like editing was pretty far, like you could do a lot of digital editing. But I remember that with this software, if you wanted to type in like you had to type in the words and line them up with the notes and stuff like that. So you had to kind of like be very meticulous to create this sort of effect. And like I say, especially with the big arrangements like in surfing, it must have been a lot of work, like weeks, I would say, of work on a track like that. And again, like the response to the album like doesn't do that fact any justice. That was actually something that took a lot of work.
And also, if you think about it, the vocals to Moonlight Shadow, of course, being like the result is a simple folk rock song, but the vocal recording was completely edited. Every word, like down to the level of a single word, he would ask Maggie Riley to repeat those.
Yes.
So it's in a way, it's like the gate, just for a very different, obvious musical result.
Yes.
But the process is still. Like he's listening for something. He really wants to get out.
And I mean, like, so there's a reason why we're making this podcast, right? It's because we recognize something special about this guy. Let's say, right? So there is something that he sort of picks up on, or something that he's concerned with, let's say, that we don't understand.
Yes, I think that's true. Yeah.
And that's why we're talking about it and trying to uncover like what's really going on. And with something like his later works, let's say, it gets more interesting to kind of like to find these, like, what is he actually hearing? What is, and I'm sure that's why like it's sort of unfortunate that there is very little interaction of him with like musicologists or even like good music journalists, let's say, right? To kind of to find out, or students like he. I think it would have been so fantastic if he would have found a way to sort of pass on his knowledge and to students somehow, you know. But like I completely agree. There's something going on even here with this record, where you say there's something he hears. There's something like, why did he include Closer in the end? Why did he say it's okay to include it? Because there is something about it where he felt like this is gonna speak to the hearts of those people. Like that's maybe, I don't know if it's consciously his knowledge, but like this is something that completely eludes me.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be able to make music knowing that it does something to people. Like I can only say it does something to me, right? But I wouldn't be able to to design my product. And I think that's something that he probably kind of like learned over the years. Obviously, if you're making so much music and you get feedback, like you really maybe you learn what does what.
Yeah, and there's also maybe it's just not even knowing what other people may think, but it's something which many of us want, and which other music doesn't have, and he just is able to tap into it, and he's unafraid to take it back with him. I think this maybe we should put that in the notes. There's this link on to an interview which a Spanish guy does with him from that time, which is incredible. And it's incredible because the questions are not asked in a way that is like a professional journalist would do it. So even though I really regret not having been able to talk to him, maybe I'm not the right person to talk to him, because there's a question in that interview where he asks, the guy asks, which are the worst enemies of the inspiration? What are your muses afraid of? So Mike has the flu, and he has to think a lot about his questions, but he says that's a great question, and then he answers it, and the answer is great. But that is a question no professional journalist would ask. What are the worst enemies of inspiration? What are your muses afraid of? But it's like a genius question. It's the right question.
And what did he say?
I'll read it. And it's really sad that as a not professional journalist, he doesn't to do for any follow-ups. He says, no one had asked me that before. If something terrible happened, it could affect inspiration. But sometimes when something bad happens, it can encourage it. Some things can stop me feeling like making music, but they don't achieve restraining my inspiration, which is also interesting.
Yes.
For instance, if I'm angry or ill, I don't feel like composing, but that doesn't mean that the inspiration disappears. Good question, I don't know. And I think this is where he should have continued, but you can tell that he feels someone gets him, and he's opening up. So, but that's clearly so when I read that, I know he's in a different sphere, just like not even making any quality value judgments, but he's somewhere else, and it's fascinating.
Yes.
And he brings it, but what he brings back, we can all potentially access, and that is amazing.
And I think it's maybe something as simple as that. Maybe Mike really is a gifted being in the sense that he has like this musicality in his body, in his, like, I don't know. And he maybe never has to think about the mundane questions about music. Like the things we talk about with like harmony or blah, blah, blah. He's way beyond, like he could do anything at any time, right? Let's just say that. So which means that he operates from a perspective where where the questions are elusive to us. Right, so like the level that one could talk with him or would have to talk with him, maybe that could actually be the explanation for why it looks like that he didn't have many friends to talk with these things about. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe he has those friends, right? but because nothing has ever come to the surface. Like, yeah, man, this little thing here, you know, they're like these nuggets that we can find.
Yeah.
But it's so rare that it seems that any of his statements about music he's really been able to make statements on his level of understanding, let's say, or even beyond the level of his understanding.
Or maybe he has, and it just looks, we don't get it. I
think that's what I mean.
He's saying something, it looks on paper, you read it and you think, well, that's obvious, but it's probably not.
I mean, in a way, I had a little bit of that feeling reading Changeling, right? So where there are certain things, like he says, where, like for example, we say, why doesn't he not write anything about discovery, or why is there no mention of islands, something like that? And it's true, like from our perspective, we want to know, but maybe he's right. You know, maybe he's right and saying that's not important. You know, like, I don't know. It's I think that's sort of part of the miracle of life, really, is like, what do we consider to be important? What are we able to leave behind? What are we holding on to? What is the way forward? How can we, you know, and somehow we know that he's always been a great pioneer and example of somebody who is changing, the changeling.
I mean, if something like this album, I still think First Steps, that piece has that greatness that we also love about the first album. In the first 3 minutes, how he gradually builds it, then changes the voicing, the harmonies in the background, and then around 3 minutes, I think it has the melody that sort of ends, and then comes in, and that transition into the new section is amazing. Yes. Around the 5 minutes, I think then there's a moment, very short, like 10 seconds or so, where there's just deep swells in the timpani, and then again, these transitions, I think there's moments which are as good as anything on here.
Again, it's the dressing, really, that makes it so different.
Which is also true for the next one, maybe to include this for Music of the Spheres, which is also, for me, a question of dressing, I guess.
It is, absolutely. Okay, I think there's a lot more we could, go into more detail, but let's leave it at that. And right?
Enjoy the summer, everyone.
Yes.
We're also taking a summer break.
Yeah, and hopefully we can still manage to complete the main part of the discography till the end of the year. Let's see.
There's 3, right? It's just 3 more.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.